the biggest problem that people have, because usually it's going to be the parent that contacts me, is that they don't feel like their child is particularly motivated to study, and when they try and bring it up, the conversation doesn't go very well, or maybe their child is finding it very overwhelming. Get rid of the blur. Finding it very overwhelming, and perhaps it's actually too much to motivate them. So again, those conversations don't necessarily go very well. The child's putting too much pressure on themselves, or they've stuck their head in a hole and they won't talk about it. So how do you actually motivate your child to revise? That's what I do all of the time. That's basically my job. So I've put together the things that I do with students myself to share with you today, and hopefully that will help. I'm sure it will. There'll definitely be something in here that you can add to your conversations with your child to help motivate them and take away that overwhelm, and make those conversations a little bit less heavy for everyone. I'm going to share my screen so that you can have some reference as we go, and as I said, still feel free to join in and ask questions and whatever else as we go. Let's just make sure that I can still see. Yes, I can still see the comments and questions. So yeah, come and get involved. So first up, what do I do? So at Green Tutors, there's a team of STEM professionals who provide online tuition in STEM subjects, primarily for GCSE students, also A-level and Key Stage 3 support in those subjects. And the idea is that those STEM professionals have chosen that as their career, right? They're working in these STEM fields, they love it. So they can make those lessons a bit more interesting, make the subject matter a bit more relevant to what happens after school, and hopefully build a love of learning, and reduce anxiety in that prep for exams and the things that I'm going to share with you today. So we've been doing that. Well, I've been doing that since 2011. The company's been going for the past 10 years, so it's all very familiar content by now. What's actually the issue that we're focused on here today? So there's more pressure on students than ever before, really, for exam success. There's a massive focus on exam performance, and I think actually that it's only really gotten worse since the exam reform. I think around 2015, grades were changed from A to G standard grades that everyone had had since the dawn of GCSEs to 9 to 1 grades, which a lot of people aren't quite caught up with, which meant that instead of an A to C being a pass, and 9 to 4 is a pass, which means that there's higher differentiation between those people at the top level, and where a student would have previously been given an A, they might be given a 9, an 8 or a 7, and have more opportunity to feel like they have failed. Plus there's more pressure on students to do well. There's been quite a lot of disruption over the past couple of years to the studies and the delivery of those lessons. And when things become overwhelming, when the pressure increases to the point where students feel like they can't actually deal with it, rather than finding a solution, that the natural response is to shut down and back away from the problem. There's a link here to some statistics that you can go and have a look at, some general mental health statistics, but the one that I thought was particularly pertinent is that 27% of British teenagers surveyed said that they felt nervous, anxious or on edge, which meant that for a significant period of time in the past 2 weeks, they had felt like that, just generally feeling anxious over a period of the past fortnight. And that's because of the pressure and the lifestyles and everything else that comes into being a teenager without fully developed cognitive skills and far too much connectivity and yet not enough connection. So these are the things that we're dealing with whilst preparing for exams. I don't think it's really that surprising to discover that students are finding that it's causing problems for their mental health. which is what we're trying to challenge by making the process simpler for them. So the solution is to actually break down the problem. I'm just going to make sure that sound is working over here. We break down the problem. So rather than a giant problem of I'm preparing for exams, I've got to do well in my GCSEs, I've got to pass all of these things. That giant problem is broken down into 100 small steps towards that goal. And then each of them, or just the next step that you have to take, become much less daunting and actually potentially manageable. Even if the problem hasn't changed, we're only looking at one step at a time, and you can measure having taken those steps. So you can see your progress. Whereas if you look at a big goal, say, for example, you're imagining preparing for a marathon, which is probably a similar sort of mindset challenge. You're preparing to run a marathon, and currently you can't run to the end of the driveway. That's scary. Step one might be to run to the end of the driveway, which is immediately significantly less scary than running a marathon. And you can do that step and you can tick that off and you can say, I've done step one. Immediately the problem is it's less daunting and you've made progress that you can measure. Okay, same idea. How can we break the problem down? Take back some control. So a lot of the time, the anxiety that any anxiety, not just for students, it's usually about not having control over the situation or not knowing what will happen. If you can speak to somebody who is experienced in that particular problem, who's been down that path before, a tutor who's been down that path hundreds of times over the past decade, and tell you exactly what to expect and how to prepare and how to take control of the situation, the anxiety immediately reduces because they feel like they have more control over what's going to happen to them and how they can deal with it. And we build a positive mindset, which is something that I always used to think of as just it's fluff and it doesn't actually matter, but it really does make a difference to focus on positive attitudes to things, celebrating your success, measuring your progress. Like I said, when you've broken one big problem down into 100 small steps, recording each of the steps that you take, and each time you make progress and each time you make a mistake and then improve, those are all positive things that you can keep track of to show that you're able to do more than you believed. When you have a negative moment, you've got evidence that you've collected that shows you that you can actually do more than you might have thought. And all of these things really help students to deal with the challenges and the overwhelm and the daunting prospect of preparing for their exams. So I'm going to go through in this presentation this evening 8 steps that you can take with your child towards success. So if you have a pen and paper ready. If you don't have a pen and paper now, you can watch back and get them again. If you do, go and get them. These will help you to give your child all of the motivation they need to prepare for their exams, to feel in control, to build that confidence, to reduce their anxiety, and to bring them towards their idea of success. I can see a couple of people are watching. Do feel free to come and say hello. Hopefully you're not doing that and I'm not seeing it. I hope that's not the case. Apologies if it looks like I'm ignoring you. Here we go. Do it over here. Good evening. Now I can see your comments. But yeah, do come and say hello. Happy to have a chat as we go. Okay, first, set some goals. What are we actually working towards? This is the first thing that I do with all of my students. We want to know why they're actually putting the work in the first place. What does it actually mean to them? They have to be relevant. Having a goal of passing your exams means absolutely nothing. Really, it doesn't mean a thing, does it? The goal is not passing your GCSEs. It's got to be something that is actually meaningful to the individual that's got to put the work in. It's got to be relevant to their personal values. If academic success doesn't mean much to them, they don't really care if they don't get top grades. They don't have to. If a particular subject means a lot to them, then that's the one that they're going to be more motivated to do well in. And if they struggle to make their personal values relevant to their exam performance, then they're never going to care. They're never going to be motivated enough to put the work into their exams. So what personal values do they have? What is actually important to them as an individual? Do they have an interest in creativity? Is there a way that you can relate that to their exams and their studies? There's creativity in everything. There's patterns and logic in maths. There's geometric art. There's beauty in the natural world. When you look at the structure of molecules, that's an exceptionally creative, beautiful thing to look at. We can make any of it relevant to their personal values, but it's going to be different for every student. So we really have to understand what's actually important to them. And then make that goal specific enough that they can actually see what that success looks like for them. So doing well in your exams isn't specific, because that's going to mean a different thing to every student. What specific success measure do they have? Do you know what they want to do after their exams? Perhaps they're interested in being an engineer. So they're going to have a specific goal to get the grades that are going to get them onto the further studies required to be an engineer. And there's so many different types of engineer. So which specific engineering paths interest them? And it might be that they haven't got a specific choice at the moment, but what areas are they interested in? What options do they have? And what grades and what performance and what subjects are going to be most applicable to that? Those are where their specific goals are going to lie. You need to make them measurable to be able to track progress towards it. So can they give you a specific measure that for a degree in mechanical engineering, they need a specific grade in physics and in maths? And where are they at the moment? And how long do they have to get there? So we need to measure the grade performance, the grade improvement, or the content requirement that they have to cover in how long, so that you can measure success over that time period. Make it actionable, something that they actually can do something about. Your goal can't be, I want to be a genius. not particularly realistic, not particularly actionable, not particularly measurable or specific. You need to choose something that actually they can do something about. Okay, so their goal might be that they want to improve 2 grades in their maths GCSE so that they can take maths A level, because they're interested in a degree that requires an A level in maths. That's actionable, because if they want to improve 2 grades in their maths GCSE, then they're going to have to give a specific focus to their maths revision and perhaps hire a maths tutor, depending on the time that they have available. They can take that action. So if you make it more specific and if you make it measurable, then it helps to identify what the next steps are. And make it realistic, because we don't want them to say, I'm going to go from a grade 2 to a grade 7 in maths in the next 3 months, because it's not very realistic. And when you have too big of a jump, or something that doesn't really look achievable at all, then there's no motivation to do that. It just is a bit heartbreaking to look at how far you are from that goal at the moment. So try to make them realistic and not work towards everything being perfect, but everything being what matters to that particular student and what is actually going to help them. And we look at making them time bound, which exams generally are, because they do have a deadline, but we don't have to use just that deadline. We can spread things out over, if we're starting from year 9, we've got year 9, year 10 and year 11, and we can set boundaries and milestones along the way, so that we've got several areas of motivation and opportunities to improve along the way. So first up, setting goals. The next thing that's very helpful to do is to have some sort of visual representation of what that success is going to look like to them. So when we've had we've thought about those goals and A-SMART measures against them, we've made it aligned to their specific values, we've got a real idea of what that success looks like for them and what it will mean for them if they achieve it. Put some visual representation of that up on the board, on a picture, on a Pinterest board, on a Jamboard, on a whiteboard. Draw a picture, stick it up on the wall. Whatever representation they can create to show what that success is going to look like, and to keep it front of mind, to motivate them, again, like measuring your wins and measuring your progress, to remind them of what they're working towards and what it will feel like and what it will mean to them when they get there. Because when they do have a bad day, that'll be something for them to look at, to remind them of what they're working towards and why it's important to them, which is another reason why it's really important to make sure that it's relevant to the individual student. Another important thing to look at is how to balance their time. So it's very easy to look at a goal and make a plan and then not fit it with reality of the passing of time. We've got a certain number of hours in the week. Is it like 160? I can't remember, something like that. We've got a certain number of hours in the week, and there are some things that we can expect that we probably will have to do. We'll have to sleep for a fair amount of them. That takes out quite a big chunk. We probably have to go to school. We're going to need some time to rest. We're going to need some time to eat. That only leaves a certain amount of time to work on their goals. It makes sense to plan them out, to actually put them into some sort of a schedule and work out how much time they actually have. Yeah, so that you can feel confident that you've made time for everything that you need to do without making it horrific. So I go through, there's a revision workshop that I do with new students and that I offer as a standalone option to buy on the website. And this is what we go through with students, just to remind them, again, they've not fully developed all of their cognitive abilities. They're still children. That doesn't happen really until you've finished university for most people. Your brain is still developing. You're still learning to deal with planning and organizing your time. So to go through this with them is really helpful. As a parent who probably has to manage the time of multiple members of the family, you can go through this with them and kind of set up what a general week looks like, so like a default week for them, the commitments that they have, if they've got after school clubs and sports clubs and family events that happen. Put that into a default diary so that they can see what their week looks like and where that work towards their goals might fit. Yeah, so they know how much time they actually have each week. So the next thing we do is we make sure that we're actually making time for work and rest and play. All of those things actually are part of work towards our success. If we set up that default diary and every bit of time that's free is then given over to work, not only is it not going to happen or not last very long, it's going to be horrible. It's going to kill their motivation. It's going to damage their mental health, and it's going to make them unwell. Everybody needs time for rest, and everybody needs time to do the things that they enjoy in order to stay motivated and refreshed and ready to work when it's time to come back and work. So making sure that they have got time in their calendar to do the things that they enjoy. If they like online gaming with their friends, then that's a fantastic way for them to be social through the week. And taking that away from them because they have exams coming up isn't going to help their motivation, and it isn't going to be a very helpful conversation, to be honest. It's probably not going to go very well. But we just need to make sure that they're being manageable, but they're being sensible about it, and remembering that they don't necessarily have fully developed impulse control. You might have to hold them accountable to whatever they've agreed about the boundaries for their online gaming, for their sports, for their TV time, whatever else it is that they do for fun and for rest. And you might have to give a little input to that. So if all of the activities that they do involve sitting at a desk or at a screen, they might need a little bit of encouragement for some of that to be moving around or going outside, because that actually helps as well with their mental health, and exercise helps with concentration and focus and exam performance. So if all of the things that they're doing are at a desk, it's not great. You probably, I mean, I find the same thing myself. Come Christmas holiday, if I just suddenly stop doing everything and the gym's closed and I'm sitting indoors all day eating biscuits, I feel much more tired through having done less. We probably all have those experiences, right? Not just me. So you will probably find that they need a little bit of encouragement to get involved with things like that. But generally, once you've built that default diary and built those habits, it becomes easier, which is why it's a good idea to start early. So make sure that they've got time for all of these things in their calendar. Next up, sleep. So I did mention sleep on the last couple of slides, but it's very important. So I'm saying it again, it gets its own point. Students need plenty of sleep. Teenagers need more sleep than their parents do generally. They need around 8 to 10 hours of sleep. 8 is the minimum, 10 is great. When they sleep in longer than you, it's not because they're lazy, it's because they're still growing. They do need more sleep than you. And if they regularly don't have that, it can really be damaging quite quickly. I personally, and I probably am not alone, feel like the time that students have to get up for school is horrific and quite torturous. I don't understand 5, 6 a.m. alarm clocks. I don't know why that's necessary. I don't understand why students have to start school before the time is in double digits. It's unnecessary. And it doesn't actually help them. That sleep deprivation, the overwhelming urge to spend hours looking at their phone, watching TikToks and reels and chatting on Snapchat until 1 o'clock in the morning, followed by a 6 a.m. wake-up call and a bus to school, just builds up to sleep deprivation, and it really has a big impact on the brain, on focus, on memory, on mood, and it's just not going to be helpful if they're regularly not getting enough sleep. I tend to have a rule that electronic devices stay downstairs. All of the chargers are kept downstairs, phones charged downstairs overnight, and there's just less temptation. And it does mean that they get out of bed quicker in the morning because they want to see what they've missed. So see if you can give that one a go. Not necessarily popular, but it does have a massive difference on performance and on mood if students are getting enough sleep. The positive mindset. So it's really important to have that positive mindset and a general attitude that things are under control, things are generally work out okay, there's lots to be grateful for, emotions are all welcomed, and you're capable of more than you think. All of these sorts of attitudes are built out of a positive mindset, which is often looked at as just unnecessary fluff, but really does make a massive difference to resilience and well-being. So if a student doesn't believe that they are capable of achieving something, there's no reason why they would put the work in to get there. But if you remind them of what they have achieved in the past by them keeping track of their wins, then they're much more likely to be motivated to step out of their comfort zone and put in a little extra work in the moment, because you've proved to them that it worked previously. Keeping track of daily gratitude, so writing down, as an example, every morning write down 10 things that you feel grateful for, which can be simple things like enjoying a cup of tea, or getting along with their siblings, or their pets, or a TV program that they enjoy. Whatever they feel grateful for, just to write down 10 things that they can think of that they're grateful for, helps them to be alert to positive things in their life, so that if things do feel overwhelming, negative, difficult, they're reminded that there are on balance lots of things to be grateful for. And we encourage them to feel all of their emotions. So unfortunately, as the parent, as an emotional safety blanket, you tend to get the more difficult emotions from them. You get those expressed in the most difficult way. They might not lose their temper with their teachers, with their tutors, with their classmates, but they will lose their temper with you. You might wonder how they come home from school grumpy and unwilling to have a conversation, and then at school everyone tells you that they're so polite. Why don't you get that? Because they've used up all of their social, or they've had a challenging day, and they don't have to pretend with you. It's not a negative. It's nice that they feel comfortable with you, and they should be encouraged to express all of the emotions, all of the good emotions and all of the bad emotions with you. That encourages their emotional development, It helps them to work out how to process those feelings, what they are, what they mean to them. And they're much shorter lived if they're allowed to let them all out and to talk about them. Don't take things personally. I know it's easier said than done. Just allow them to have that conversation and be confident that they're doing so because they feel comfortable in doing that with you. Remembering that it has to be one step at a time. When we look at these giant goals, they are overwhelming. We focus on things one step at a time. So when I work with students and I identified the particular smart, meaningful goal for them and how they're going to plan that into the time they have remaining, we just look at what the next step is. What's the next thing they're going to do? What are they going to do tomorrow? What are they going to do next week? And how are they going to measure progress next month? We just want to look at what the next thing is to do. One, because it's much less overwhelming and it's much less pressure. And two, because this is a work in progress. These are habits that we build over time. So the plan is probably going to change from one week to the next anyway. So just focus on what the next step is and review your progress regularly and you'll be on track. And number 8. So we've put together this plan. We know what they're going to do one day at a time. Write it all down. Set up a step-by-step plan, a day-by-day plan for the rest of the time they have remaining to prepare, and make it really obvious what they need to cover. So in their revision sessions, what content do they need to cover? Where are they going to find the information and the resources they need to do that? Who's going to help them with that? What particular study methods work for them? What resources do they need? Where are they going to find everything? How are they going to make all of that work? Or get yourself a revision planner. So this is something that I've been working on this year. I put together a revision planner for GCSE students to basically go through this whole process, but for them, and to work out exactly what they need to do to get towards the goal once they've decided what it is. So you can buy that one, or you can any diary, any planner that works for you. I'll put the link in the chat here, so you can, if you're interested in finding out about that, you can get on the wait list to get a special offer when that's launched very soon. Very excited about that. Pretty much put all of the last decade of content, all of the conversations that I have with my students, all of the things that work, all of the things that don't, into this planner with a week by week plan of how they're going to get to where they need to be and not be overwhelmed, look after their well-being as they go, and just take control and get rid of their anxiety. It's a difficult process. It is a challenging process, but all of those things, that step by step, that focusing on what individually is important to them and turning it into an actual action plan that they can take charge of, that they can implement one step at a time, just really kills any of that anxiety, any of that overwhelm, any of that doubt, gets all of those difficult conversations out of the way, and means that you're both on the same page, that you know what they're working towards and why. They know what it's going to mean to them and they know exactly what they need to do. It's much, much easier to get there that way. So whilst we're here, here's a summary of the ways that I can help you with that. So with Green Tutors, we offer one-to-one tuition to support with your STEM studies, so maths and sciences. We're actually pretty close to fully booked, actually. There's not everything is available. Some maths, some chemistry. I think we might be approaching fully booked. You can also get on the wait list for the revision planner at the link that I've put in the chat there, so that you can get a special offer on that when it's launched very soon. You can purchase a revision workshop where I'll go through this 8-step process with your child and you if you wanted to also get involved, or you can just leave it with the child if you want to. If the conversations are usually very difficult and you don't want to be in the room, that's absolutely fine, and we will make your child their step-by-step plan to deal with this. I'm also putting together a program So if you were interested in doing this one-to-one and you wanted the revision planner, but you also want a bit of extra hand-holding, all of the content exists as a digital 8-week program that you can do step by step with myself, and really get to grips with exactly how you can reduce that anxiety and build that action plan with your child and really get on track for confident revision. I hope that's really helped. I hope that's going to help you to feel like this situation is less overwhelming and less daunting. You feel like you have some action steps that you can do in the coming weeks to kill that overwhelm, make those conversations easier with your child. This video is going to stay here. If you're watching this on replay, you've found it already. It's going to stay on the page, and you can come and check in and ask questions later. You can rewatch. You can sign up to the waiting list planner, and you'll get some extra information there about ways that you can support your child. These contact details here are other ways that you can get in touch with me if you have other questions that you would rather not share on Facebook. Oh yeah, it reminded me that I have fancy games here. Look at that. I do enjoy. I really hope that was helpful for you today. If there's anything that you need, if you have any questions about that content, give me a shout, and yeah, I look forward to hearing how you get on with that. Have a good evening, and I'll speak to you soon.